Under the stars, the creature purred softly. Captain Thin of the Xian Galactic Patrol was fixed on the screen, his angular green face a canvas of disbelief and confusion. His eye stalks quivered with a mixture of fear and curiosity as he stared at the creature in the middle of the cargo bay. It was a small, furry quadruped with slitted eyes, its expression lazy yet calculating. Turning to his Lieutenant Clore, who shared his perplexity, Thin asked, "What do you make of this, Clore?" Clore, tasked with identifying unknown life forms, ran his claws over the control panel, pulling up all available data. According to the database, it's an unclassified entity. It was found in the wreckage of that human ship we salvaged. All signs point to it being a pet, but it just devoured that energy rod like it was nothing, Thin interrupted, his voice tinged with alarm. Our weapons can barely make a dent in those things. Clore nodded, his eyes narrowing. Exactly, Captain. That's why we need to be cautious. This could be some sort of bioweapon the humans engineered. The creature yawned widely, displaying sharp teeth, which sent a shiver down Thin's spine. It then curled up into a ball and began emitting a rhythmic, soothing sound. There it goes again with that strange noise, Thin muttered. What's it doing, Clore? Clore hesitated before responding, his voice tinged with both wonder and concern. I believe it's calming itself, or perhaps us, as a form of manipulation. Manipulation? Thin recoiled, his eye stalks shooting straight up. We can't allow it to gain control over our emotions. Send for a team of scientists immediately. We need to understand what we're dealing with. The scientists arrived promptly, a group of serious-faced Laxan who approached the creature cautiously. They set up an array of instruments, measuring everything from its energy emissions to its metabolic rate. It's not emitting any harmful radiation, reported one scientist, Vor, a grizzled veteran. In fact, its energy signature is quite low. It's consuming a minimal amount of resources for a creature of its size. Could it be masking its true nature? Thin asked, his eyes fixed on the screen. Unlikely, Vor responded, scratching his chin with a claw. If it were capable of such deception, we would detect fluctuations in its bio-readings. It's just a simple creature. As the scientists continued their analysis, the humans from the salvage ship were brought aboard for questioning. Among them was Lieutenant David Harris, known for his calm demeanor in first contact situations. Led to the bridge, Harris faced Thin and Clore with composure. Human, Thin demanded, pointing to the screen where the creature lay sprawled out. What is that creature in our cargo bay? Harris looked at the screen and chuckled. Oh, you mean Whiskers? He's harmless. Harmless? Thin echoed incredulously. It consumed an energy rod and displays behaviors we cannot comprehend. Explain this cat to us. Harris smiled, realizing the misunderstanding. Cats are domesticated animals from Earth. They're kept as pets. They're not engineered bioweapons or apex predators, just companions. The purring you hear is a sign of contentment. Thin and Clore exchanged dubious glances. This contentment, Clore ventured cautiously. Is it a form of psychological warfare? Harris shook his head, still smiling. No, it's just their way of showing they're happy. Cats have been living with humans for thousands of years. They're very good at surviving, but they're not dangerous to us. Despite Harris's reassurances, the Xians remained cautious. They observed Whiskers meticulously, documenting his behavior. The cat, meanwhile, adapted quickly to his new environment, exploring the cargo bay with curiosity and even approaching the scientists, rubbing against their legs and purring louder. Captain Thin watched these interactions with a mix of fascination and bewilderment. Human, he said to Harris during one of their discussions. How can such a small creature inspire such fear and confusion among our ranks? Harris shrugged. Cats have a way of getting under your skin. They're mysterious, independent, and sometimes, yes, a bit intimidating. But once you understand them, they're quite endearing. Thin pondered this. Perhaps it is not the creature itself that is the threat, but our ignorance of it. Exactly, Harris agreed. Understanding is the key. Once you get to know Whiskers, you'll see he's just looking for a comfortable place to sleep, and a good meal. As days turned into weeks, the Xian crew's fear of Whiskers gradually turned to curiosity and then to affection. The scientists even started taking turns feeding him, laughing at his antics, and marveling at his agility and grace. One day, as Thin observed Whiskers chasing a small ball around the cargo bay, he turned to Harris with a rare smile. "Perhaps we have much to learn from you humans, Lieutenant. This creature, this cat, has taught us more about ourselves than any other encounter." Harris nodded, a twinkle in his eye. "That's the thing about cats, Captain. They have a way of making us see the world differently." Whiskers had become an unexpected ambassador, his antics bridging the cultural chasm between humans and Xians. The once feared monster was now a beloved fixture on the ship, and his presence opened the door to deeper understanding between the species. Captain Thin and Lieutenant Clore spent many hours in discussion with Lieutenant Harris, delving into the intricacies of human culture and the role of animals within it. One day, as Thin observed Whiskers stalking a small robotic toy that one of the scientists had constructed, he turned to Harris with a thoughtful expression. "Tell me, Lieutenant," Thin began, "do all human creatures exhibit such, complex behavior?" Harris chuckled. "Not all of them, but cats are particularly interesting. They're independent yet affectionate, mysterious yet straightforward. They have a way of making us slow down and appreciate the simple things in life." Thin nodded, his eye stalks focusing on Whiskers, who was now batting the toy around with evident delight. It is remarkable how a creature so small can command such attention and admiration. Just then, the ship's communication system chimed, and Corin's voice crackled through. "Captain, we have an incoming transmission from the High Council. They wish to speak with you immediately." Thin's expression shifted to one of concern. "Patch it through to the bridge," he ordered. The holographic image of High Chancellor Zorak appeared, his regal bearing unmistakable. "Captain Thin, we have received reports of an unknown entity aboard your vessel. Explain this at once." Thin straightened his eye stalks, unwavering. "Chancellor, the entity in question is a domesticated animal from the human ship we salvaged. It poses no threat to our crew or the ship. In fact, it has proven to be quite beneficial in fostering understanding between our species." Zorak's eyes narrowed. "Beneficial, you say? This is most unusual. We have little experience with such creatures. Is it true that it consumed one of our energy rods?" "Yes, Chancellor," Thin admitted. "But it appears to have done so out of curiosity rather than malice. The humans assure us that this behavior is typical of their species' pets." Zorak's image flickered as he processed this information. "Very well, Captain. We will trust your judgment for now. However, I expect regular updates on this situation. The Council is most interested in the implications of this encounter." "Of course, Chancellor," Thin replied respectfully. "We will keep you informed." As the transmission ended, Thin turned to Harris, his expression a mix of relief and determination. "It seems your Whiskers has garnered the attention of our leaders. We must ensure that his presence continues to be seen as a positive influence." Harris nodded. "I understand, Captain. I'll make sure Whiskers stays out of trouble." In the following days, Whiskers' charm continued to win over the Xian crew. He had a particular fondness for lounging in the control room, where the gentle hum of the ship's systems seemed to soothe him. The crew members, initially wary, now vied for the opportunity to feed him or play with him during their breaks. One evening, as the ship cruised through a particularly beautiful stretch of nebula, Thin invited Harris to join him in the observation deck. Whiskers naturally followed, hopping up onto the railing and gazing out at the swirling colors with what seemed like feline appreciation. "Lieutenant Harris," Thin began, "I must admit I was skeptical at first. But Whiskers has become a valuable part of our mission. He has shown us that not all unknowns are threats, and that there is much we can learn from each other." Harris smiled, looking at the content cat. "I'm glad to hear that, Captain. It's true, cats have a way of bridging gaps. They remind us of the importance of companionship and understanding." As they watched the nebula together, the ship's alert system suddenly blared. Corin's urgent voice came through the comm. "Captain, we're detecting a massive energy surge on the outskirts of the nebula. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Thin and Harris rushed back to the bridge, Whiskers trotting behind them. The view on the main screen showed a brilliant flash of light, followed by a wave of energy that rippled through space. "What is it?" Thin demanded. Corin's fingers flew over the controls. "It appears to be some kind of spatial anomaly. We're being pulled towards it, initiating evasive maneuvers." The ship shuddered as it attempted to break free from the anomaly's grasp. Whiskers, sensing the tension, jumped into Harris's arms, his eyes wide with alarm. "Is there anything we can do?" Harris asked, his voice steady despite the rising panic. "We need to stabilize the ship," Corin replied, his eye stalks darting across the control panels. "Chlor, divert all available power to the engines." As the crew worked frantically, Whiskers suddenly leaped from Harris's arms onto the main console. The cat's paws danced over the controls, seemingly at random, yet the ship's systems responded, adjusting course and rerouting power as needed. Thin stared in astonishment. "Is he piloting the ship?" Harris watched in awe. "I have no idea how he's doing it, but it looks like he is." With one final press of his paw, Whiskers stabilized the ship's trajectory, and the anomaly faded from view. The bridge fell silent, the only sound the soft hum of the ship's systems and the steady purr of Whiskers. Thin turned to Harris, his expression one of profound respect. "Lieutenant, it seems your Whiskers is more than just a pet. He may very well be a guardian." Harris, equally stunned, nodded slowly. "It appears so, Captain. It appears so." As the crew processed what had just happened, Whiskers curled up on the console, his mission accomplished. The Zeons had once feared him as a monster, but now they saw him as something far more extraordinary, a friend and protector in the vast, unpredictable galaxy. The anomaly's effects had left the crew both shaken and awed. Whiskers had performed an incredible feat, and the Zeons were eager to understand how such a small, seemingly insignificant creature could save their ship. "Captain, we must investigate this further," Corin said, his eyes fixed on Whiskers, who was now calmly grooming himself on the console. "This cat possesses abilities we cannot explain." Thin nodded, still processing the miraculous turn of events. "Agreed, Harris. Can you shed any light on this? Have humans ever documented such behavior in cats?" Harris shook his head, equally perplexed. "Not to my knowledge. Whiskers is just an ordinary cat. There's no record of cats displaying any kind of advanced understanding of technology or space phenomena. This is as surprising to me as it is to you." Thin pondered for a moment. "Perhaps there is something about this environment or the anomaly itself that triggered this behavior. We must study Whiskers and the anomaly further." The Zeon scientists, with Harris's cooperation, began a thorough examination of Whiskers. They scanned him with every available instrument, analyzing his brain activity, genetic makeup, and even his reactions to various stimuli. Despite their efforts, they found nothing out of the ordinary. Whiskers was, by all accounts, a typical Earth feline. Meanwhile, the ship maintained a safe distance from the anomaly, monitoring its activity. The crew continued their daily routines, albeit with a new sense of reverence for their furry savior. Whiskers had become a symbol of hope and curiosity, inspiring the Zeons to approach the unknown with a more open mind. One day, as the scientists were conducting yet another round of tests, Whiskers began to act strangely. He paced back and forth, his tail flicking with agitation. Harris watched with concern. "Something's bothering him," Thin observed from the bridge. "What could it be? The anomaly has been stable for days." As if on cue, the anomaly began to pulse with energy. The ship's sensors picked up a sudden surge, similar to the one that had initially drawn them in. Corin quickly analyzed the readings. "Captain, the anomaly is becoming unstable again. We need to move the ship to a safer distance." Before they could act, Whiskers darted out of the lab and headed straight for the control room. The crew watched in astonishment as the cat jumped onto the main console once more, his paws moving with purpose. "He's doing it again," Thin whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Harris stood by, ready to assist, but trusting Whiskers' instincts. The cat's movements were precise, and the ship's systems responded, adjusting course and rerouting power as needed. It was as if Whiskers had an innate understanding of the ship's controls and the anomaly's behavior. The ship shuddered as it maneuvered away from the anomaly, but this time, the process was smoother. Whiskers continued his efforts until the ship was at a safe distance. The anomaly's instability eventually subsided, leaving the crew in awe of the cat's actions. Thin approached Harris, his expression a mix of respect and curiosity. "Lieutenant, it seems Whiskers has saved us once again. How can we explain this?" Harris knelt beside Whiskers, scratching behind his ears. "I don't know, Captain. Maybe it's intuition, or something beyond our understanding. Whiskers seems to have a connection with the anomaly, or perhaps with the ship itself." Clore, who had been analyzing the data, spoke up. "Captain, there's something else. The anomaly's energy patterns bear a striking resemblance to certain frequencies observed in Whiskers' brain activity. It's possible that the anomaly and Whiskers are somehow linked." Thin considered this. Could it be that Whiskers is not just an ordinary cat, but a bridge between our world and the anomaly? Harris nodded slowly. "It's possible. Cats have always had a mysterious quality about them. Perhaps Whiskers was chosen, or has a unique ability to interact with the anomaly." As the crew absorbed this revelation, Thin made a decision. "We will document everything and report our findings to the High Council. Whiskers has shown us that there is much we do not understand about the universe, and that sometimes the smallest creatures can have the greatest impact." In the following weeks, the crew continued to study the anomaly and Whiskers. They discovered that while Whiskers did not possess any supernatural abilities, his instincts and reactions were incredibly attuned to the anomaly's fluctuations. It became clear that his presence on the ship was a unique convergence of events, a rare alignment of the ordinary and the extraordinary. Whiskers, content with his role as the ship's guardian, continued to explore and interact with the crew. He had become a symbol of unity and discovery, bridging the gap between species and inspiring a new era of cooperation and curiosity. As the Xian ship returned to its homeworld, the crew brought with them a story that would be told for generations. Whiskers, the cat who had been feared as a monster, had become a hero. His tale was a reminder that even in the vastness of space, there is always room for wonder and the unexpected.